our business is effectively going to dodge tariffs this season while the rest of the industry at large has to deal with it has to be seen as an advantage to the used bike model. But for many shops out there, may be looking at an unfortunate perfect storm of being forced to raise prices on customers during a time when prices that customers are willing to pay is actually lower. And that's a bad combination when you're forced to charge a higher amount during a time when the demand dictates that people will spend less. Apparently, you are not tired of hearing about tariffs yet because you clicked on the video. Now, let me first be clear. This video is not discussing anything about politics. This is not a politics space. This is a bike shop space. So regardless of what you may think about some of the economic pressures that are coming down on bike shops and the economy as a whole right now, any discussions regarding the political side, you can save for the comments. But for this video and all of my videos, the point is to hone in on useful information for bike shop owners. I look at every video as an opportunity to speak to myself 10 years prior and give them one snippet of information that may be useful. That being said, the topic today is very pertinent to our times right now. And that comes down to tariffs and how they will affect your business. And most importantly, how used bikes may help you mitigate the effects of tariffs on your business. So to start off, we're gonna discuss one of the biggest benefits of this business model given the state of tariffs. All of the used bikes that we acquire effectively come from a local secondhand marketplace rather than coming from overseas directly. Because of this, we're not subject to tariffs in the same way that new bike retailers are. This is an enormous advantage and in many ways a secret weapon during these weird economic times. Just think about it for a second. All of our inventory is coming in between 10 and 20 years old. That bike may have originally come from China or Taiwan or some other country, but for our purposes, we sourced it locally after its tariff hit, after its depreciation hit. And so because of this, despite what's going on right now, I'm largely sourcing all of my inventory at the same expense as I would be otherwise. This maintains my margin and also puts me in a position where I don't have to change prices on my customers in order to maintain that margin. As we all know, new bike sales have been getting squeezed on margin slowly but surely over time. And this is going to be yet another intense pressure on bike shop owners. And again, this is not to discuss the political side. I'm merely stating that given the current environment, there are some considerable advantages to bringing some used bikes into your shop. Even if not to replace your model entirely, you can still sub in used bike sales for some of your would-be new bike sales. This can be particularly important if you need to maintain margin, especially on those lower dollar sales in the $500 to $700 price range. As a whole, there's been a trend in new bike shops towards going for the higher dollar, more expensive sales. And this is because of the workload that goes into an individual bike sale, as well as the slightly heightened margin with the more expensive products. But for many shops out there that operate more in the middle, they're gonna get squeezed particularly hard. I normally might not discuss larger economic factors, but I felt that it really applies directly. The fact that our business is effectively going to dodge tariffs this season while the rest of the industry at large has to deal with it has to be seen as an advantage to the used bike model. I don't say this as if I had a crystal ball and I saw this coming. I don't think any of us could say that. But this does speak to the resiliency of the model in general, in that larger economic pressures tend to have a significantly lesser effect on used marketplaces. I've said it before, but focusing on secondhand products does lend itself to heightened independence in your store. Not only are you less affected by larger economic factors, but also the decision-making of your parent retail company, such as Trek or Giant or Specialized. Issues with depreciation of your inventory year over year, or even sales that are decided by your parent company, are not things that affect you in the used bike world. And now in today's crazy environment, we've added yet another pressure that the used bike market is immune to. And because of that, while a lot of shop owners may be looking at this season with some trepidation and fear, I have no loss of confidence in where our sales are going to be. Now, to be clear, I'm not trying to say that this is a cure-all across all facets of your business. We are still very much affected by tariffs on the parts and accessories side. Anything that we may order through our distributors is certainly going to be subject to these tariffs, and so we are keeping our eyes open on what may happen on our margins for our smaller ticket sales, such as accessory items. But this being said, it's not something that strikes fear into my heart because the lion's share of the revenue that comes in through our business is through bike sales. I'm sure there's a lot of shop owners out there that have concerns looking forward into the season. If you haven't already, I do invite you to consider implementing at least a few used bikes into your inventory and just see how it goes, especially if you start to feel a sudden margin squeeze. We may be looking at an unfortunate perfect storm of being forced to raise prices on customers during a time when there's also a glut in inventory and the prices that customers are willing to pay is actually lower. And that's a bad combination when you're forced to charge a higher amount during a time when the demand dictates that people will spend less. This could be a recipe for disaster in bike sales as we head into the strongest part of our season for many North American shops. I don't say this to spell doom and gloom. Nobody has a crystal ball, but from my point of view, this is just yet another example of the resiliency of the used bike model and why I would encourage more people to take a look at it, and why I will always be an advocate for shop owners to take a harder look at that angle. Whether you're a shop owner or bike consumer, let us know what you think about what's going on down in the comments. And on a side note, if you're looking to up your knowledge in general on the business model that I have followed these last 10 years, I do want to bring up that we have channel memberships now. There's several different tiers from whether you want to learn more about this specific business model and how we built it from the ground up, or even if you want some personalized curation from myself where we can sit down and talk over Zoom and figure out where there may be some better efficiencies to discover in your business.